Nearly 100 Minnesota mayors say they are deeply concerned and frustrated by the fraud and unchecked spending from state officials. They say the state's $18 billion surplus has disappeared, and now Minnesota projects $3 billion in deficits in 2028. Their letter goes on to say, as mayors, we see firsthand how these decisions ripple outward. Our state owes it to our citizens to practice responsible fiscal management and to stop taxing our families, seniors, and businesses out of Minnesota. We urge the legislature to course correct and to remember that every dollar you manage belongs not to the capital, but to the people of Minnesota.
Joining us now is the Brewer Group CEO, Jack Brewer. Lived in Minnesota for many years of his adult life. Jack, what's your reaction to this letter?
We can stop there, right? We can stop there with Mr. Jack Brewer, respectfully. So this is insanity. You know, what's going on in Minnesota, you know, under the leadership of Tim Walz, who's looking to run for re-election to be the three-time governor of Minnesota. They're projecting a $3 billion deficit by 2028, $3 billion state deficit. But most importantly, what you just heard is that $18 billion in surplus money vanished, just gone, just completely disappeared. How is that even possible? Really let that settle in. How do you lose $18 billion in surplus funds that just vanish? Well, you want to know how you lose it? This is how you lose it. In a new term that's called fraud tourism. We're all aware of birther tourism that's been going on for decades upon decades now, with immigrants in general, legal and illegal, that have abused birthright citizenship, you know, underneath the Constitution. That's been thoroughly abused. Trump is looking to correct that situation so that this can happen no more. But we're all familiar with birther tourism, right? But now the new thing is fraud tourism, and it's something that is very specific to Minnesota. Let's unpack that right now, because this is just out of control. Once again, underneath the leadership of Tim Walz. And just let this sit on your mind for a moment before we transition over to the article as well. None of this stuff would have come out if Harris and Walz would have became president. We wouldn't have known about any of this. They kept it all underneath the rug during Biden and Harris. Under Harris and Walz, forget about it. We would have been in the dark, and these people would have been running rampant, stealing billions upon billions of dollars still till this day. But let's transition over to the fraud tourism article next. Okay, so look at this here. Fraud tourists traveled to Minnesota after a friend told them state programs were a good opportunity to make money. Prosecutors say it was easy money, robbing the taxpayers blind in Minnesota. Look at this. Federal prosecutors announced new indictments Thursday in the widening Minnesota fraud scandal, this time involving two Philadelphia-based men accused of traveling to Minneapolis after a friend told them the taxpayer-funded programs there presented a good opportunity to make money. Anthony Waddell Jefferson and Lester Brown are accused of siphoning millions from federally funded programs administered by Minnesota officials that were meant to help people with disabilities and those suffering from addiction. Unlike many of the individuals previously caught in the state's sprawling fraud scandal, they don't appear to have ties to Minnesota's large Somali American community. Prosecutors say they don't have ties to Minnesota at all. There's a reason that I have the name Anthony Waddell Jefferson and Lester Brown in purple, as well as that statement here. They don't appear to have ties to Minnesota's large Somali American community. We're going to come back to that. CBS, I see what you're doing, and you're not slick, and I'm going to expose you. But I digress. Let's get back into this article. Minnesota has become a magnet for fraud, so much so that we have developed a fraud tourism industry. People coming to our state purely to exploit and defraud its programs, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson, who brought the new charges. This is a deeply unsettling reality that all Minnesotans should understand. Court filings allege the men submitted up to $3.5 million in fake and inflated bills for Medicaid reimbursements after they set up a company intended to provide housing and other services to individuals who qualify for the program. They allegedly fleeced the housing program in Minnesota despite living on the other side of the country and having no network in or connections to Minnesota or its communities. That's how easy it was to fleece millions of dollars from the Minnesota government, stealing from taxpayers. Me, TD, out here in Los Angeles with zero connections to anybody in Minnesota or Minneapolis. I don't know anybody. I could have went over there just like these men did, started up a BS nonprofit or a BS business, because anybody can start up a nonprofit or business on paper and file it with the state. You don't have to have a brick and mortar. Anybody can do this. And then from there, as long as I have some trash mission statement where I'm claiming that I'm here to provide housing for like children with autism, I can then start building the Minnesota government like crazy and walk away with millions upon millions of dollars and then bring myself right back here to Los Angeles, buy me a brand new house and live lavish. Like it's nothing. This is insanity. Okay. And once again, these are the people that want to run the country. Yeah, not on my watch, not if I have anything to do with it. I'm going to keep exposing these folks and bringing this nonsense to light to make sure these people never come into power again. But it gets worse and interesting at the same time, because now we're going to get into more purple highlighted names. And let's see if you notice what I noticed concerning these names that are being read off from me, right? So let's check this out. Allow me a moment to scroll down. So Jefferson and Brown were among 6 people indicted for fraud on Thursday. Excuse me with these foreign names, okay? Forgive me. Abadinajib Hassan, okay, allegedly registered a company to help channel state resources to the families of children with autism, spending some of the $6 million he took from the program on the purchase of a Freightliner semi-truck. Hassan Ahmed Hassin and Ahmed Abadi Rashid Mohammed are accused of pocketing $750,000 intended to help Medicaid recipients find housing, then using the money on international travel. And then we have our man Kamil Omar Salah, allegedly submitted $1.4 million in fraudulent claims as part of a housing stabilization service fraud scheme. He spent $150,000 of it on crypto and fled to Amsterdam after he was subpoenaed, officials say. So he's gone, and so is that money. Let me tell you guys something. Out of all the names that I just read off here, he was the smartest one, okay? Because when he put that money in crypto, that money is as good as gone. You're never getting that back at all. And if he put it in Bitcoin, he's set for life. He's not worried about anything. He was the smartest one out of everybody, right? But here's where we bring this to a close. Prosecutors said that they are investigating roughly $18 billion spent on social programs in Minnesota since 2018. CBS News asked how much they believe was fraud, and they said they've seen more red flags than legitimate providers. That is crazy. Thompson suggested half of the $18 billion or more could be fraudulent. So when you're wondering how $18 billion in surplus can just poof, disappear like magic, this is how. When you have fraud tourism going on and the word is spreading across the country that, hey, if you want to make a quick couple $1 million, just go to Minnesota, set up a fake business, a fake nonprofit, put a bogus mission statement on there of how you want to help people, and then start building the government and the money starts piling in, well, that's how $18 billion goes up in flames or disappears like magic. But I want to end this out here. I want you to take a look at this. Let's go back to the very top of this CBS article, because once again, I see what you're doing. I want you guys to pay attention to how CBS made it a point to lead with the Americans so that they can create cover for the large Somali American community, as well as for the immigrant, hand quotes, community at large. So you lead with the Americans and you say that they have no ties to the large Somali community. But then as you go on to articulate how 6 people have been indicted so far in this fraud tourism, notice how the last 4 names were all foreign names. So they made it a point to prop up the Americans as the face, right? Once again, to run cover for immigrants. Diabolical on behalf of CBS. These guys are just playing politics. They're playing politics. Imagine that, making sure that the Americans are the face of it. But when you go on to read the rest of the names of those indicted, it's a bunch of names that you can't even pronounce.